Well, hello again, and welcome to our overview for week number 7. This is the last week of our course prior to our final exam. I want to tell you how proud I am of you and your work in our course together. You should be proud of yourselves. Well, we better begin, so here we go. Okay, so welcome to our week in American politics. This event was a precursor to further charters, such as in the United Nations. It is a response to the geopolitical situation in Europe, and this was also a response to Soviet aggression as well as German aggression. All right, so let's move on. This week event was the Atlantic Charter issued by Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, and it was published on August 14th, 1941. The Atlantic Charter was a joint declaration released by U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill following a meeting of the two heads of government in Newfoundland. By the end of May 1941, German forces had inflicted defeats upon British, Greek, and Yugoslav forces in the Balkans and were threatening to overrun Egypt and close off the Suez Canal, thereby restricting British access to its possessions in India. Additionally, when the Germans invaded the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, few foreign policy people in Washington or London believed that the Soviets would be able to resist the Nazis for more than 6 weeks. As the British focused its effort on the dealing with the Germans in Europe, they were also concerned that Japan might take advantage of the situation to seize British, French, and Dutch territories in Southeast Asia. Churchill and Roosevelt met between August 9th and August 10th, 1941, aboard the USS Augusta in Placentia Bay, Newfoundland, to discuss the situation of the world and their respective war aims and to outline a post-war international system. What must be remembered that the U.S. was still overwhelmingly isolationist and was not officially in the war. Additionally, the U.S. was not officially in the war. It wouldn't be until the bombing of Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. The charter they drafted included 8 common principles that the United States and Great Britain would be committed to supporting in the post war world. Both countries agreed not to seek territorial expansion, to seek the liberalization of international trade, to establish freedom of the seas, and international labor, economic, and welfare standards. Most importantly, both the United States and Great Britain were committed to supporting the restoration of self-governments for all countries that had been occupied during the war and allowing all peoples to choose their own form of government. While the meeting was successful in drafting these aims, it failed to produce the desired results for either leader. Roosevelt had hoped that the charter might encourage the American people to back U.S. intervention in World War II on behalf of the Allies. However, public opinion remained adamantly opposed to such a policy until the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Churchill's primary goal in attending the Atlantic Conference was to get the Americans into the war. Barring that, he hoped that the United States would increase its amount of military aid to Great Britain and warn Japan against taking any aggressive actions in the Pacific. Additionally, Roosevelt wanted Churchill to declare publicly that Great Britain was not involved in any secret treaties, particularly ones concerning territorial questions, such as those concluded by the Allies during the First World War, concerning the division of enemy territory at its war's end. Now let's look at this and see what that meant. Roosevelt did not want Great Britain to act imperially on the conquered lands of Europe. This type of activity had been occurring for centuries in European wars, and Roosevelt was hoping to head that off at the pass. Roosevelt also wished to arrange the terms by which Great Britain would repay the United States for its Lend-Lease assistance. Roosevelt wanted the British to pay compensation by dismantling their system of imperial preference. Now let's look at what imperial preference is. Imperial preference had been established by the British government during the Great Depression and was designed to encourage trade within the British Empire by lowering tariff rates between empire members while maintaining discriminatory tariffs against outsiders. That sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it, from the Revolution? However, Churchill worried that the abandonment of imperial preference would anger the protectionist wing of his conservative party. Churchill was extremely disappointed by Roosevelt's refusal to discuss American entry into the war. Churchill also understood that several aspects of the proposed joint declaration might be politically damaging for himself. To Churchill's chagrin, the Americans also proved unwilling to warn Japan too strongly against any future military action against British possessions in Southeast Asia. Churchill and many members of his cabinet were alarmed by this third point of the Charter, which mentions the rights of all peoples to choose their own government. Remember, they're imperialistic, and there still is a British Empire. And Churchill was concerned that this clause acknowledged the right of colonial subjects to agitate for decolonization, including those in Great Britain's empire. The biggest fear was what we did to Great Britain at beginning in 1776, and then, of course, ending with the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Independence, and the British Empire was scared to death of their possessions declaring independence. And if you know history at all, this is exactly what happens in a lot of places within the empire. So Churchill really and truly had a genuine fear here. Nevertheless, Churchill realized that the joint declaration was the most he could accomplish during the conference. Excuse me. While the United States would remain neutral, the declaration would raise the morale of the British public and, most importantly, bind the United States closer to Great Britain. Therefore, when Churchill forwarded the text of the declaration to his cabinet on August 11th, he warned them that it would be imprudent to raise unnecessary difficulties. Churchill's cabinet followed his recommendations and then approved the charter. While the Atlantic Charter of August 1941 was not particularly a legal binding treaty, it was nonetheless significant for several reasons. A, it publicly affirmed the sense of solidarity between the U.S. and Great Britain against Axis aggression. B, it laid out President Roosevelt's vision for the post-war world, one that would be characterized by freer exchange of trade, self-determination, disarmament, and collective security. Finally, the Charter ultimately did serve as an inspiration for colonial subjects throughout the Third World, from Algeria to Vietnam, as they fought for their own independence. Okay, let's go over week 7. The title of week 7's reading is The Functions of Government. The chapters you are to read are 13, 15, and 16. The reading is longer, but the quiz is shorter. You'll receive 20 points for taking the quiz, and the quiz is not nearly as long as the others. So I wanted to give you a break there. And I think you're going to do well on the quiz. I really do. And remember that the quizzes are part of your study guide for your final exam. The final exam is not over the discussions, as is mentioned in the syllabus. It's over the Connect readings, okay? The post-course assessment excuse me, must be completed to automatically receive the 10 points. It doesn't matter if you miss one, doesn't matter what happens. I'll get the data from that, but you will receive 10 points for taking it. If for some reason it doesn't automatically add the 10 points, it does alert me that you've taken the quiz, so or the assessment, so I can hard and place that into your grade book. Okay. The assessment is not required. It's not required of you, but it is bonus points, and I strongly encourage you to complete this assignment as it is an opportunity for bonus points as well as data collection for the university. Okay? Well, with all that being said, I'm going to have a donut. Okay, to conclude, you should now be aware of the information and expectations of week 7. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. And listen, we're at week 7 of a week 8 course. You can see the end of the tunnel for this course. All right, as always, and I'll repeat, if you have any questions, please contact me. Have a great week. And remember, all your work will be finished except the final exam in this week. But we'll talk about week 8 and the final exam and your expectations next week during your week 8 um, contents. Okay? All right, everybody. Have a great day.